This is the Know Your Law series by Barefoot Law, a non-profit organization which uses digital innovation and technology to provide free legal information and guidance for all. For more information, visit www.barefootlaw.org.
Hi there, Penny here from Barefoot Law. As we kickstart the Data Privacy Week, we are here to give you more information on data privacy and protections. But before we talk about data privacy, you all need to understand what data is. Data, simply put, is information about places, about a person, information that describes a place. That is data. Anything that describes or explains what something is, or someone, or who someone is. Now, what is personal data? Personal data is any information that describes you as a person. For example, information on your national ID, your age, your religion, your sex, your educational background, your marital status, anything, if was put out there or exposed, would easily identify you as a person. Now, it's important to note that this information, private information, should be protected at all costs. Why? In the event that this information lands on the wrongest of hands, can be very harmful. However small or big, information like this has to be guarded greatly, hence the need for data privacy and protection. Hi, we are continuing our discussion on data privacy. Penny here. And what we are going to talk about now is how is our data collected? How can this information be collected from you? One of the ways this information is collected is voluntarily. In an ideal world, information should actually be collected from you with your permission. Basically, you should give your consent before this information is got from you. For example, when you walk into a hospital, you know, we've been in these uncertain times, you walk in there and they ask for your name, your age, your sex, your marital status, you give them this information. That you have done voluntarily. Now, sometimes this may not be the case. Sometimes we may have to give information because it is mandatory. We have to give that information. For instance, during population census, you have to give that information. If someone comes to your house and asks you how many people live in your house, you are obligated under the law to give that information. During immunizations, you cannot withhold your child's information. You know, of course, as guardians to these children, you have to give this information, and it would be against the law to hold back this information. Then another time where information may be got from you is, let me give an example. Many of us use apps, right? Applications on our phones, as simple as even Facebook, where you can actually find Barefoot Law in case you need us. But yes, when you go on Facebook, we have different apps like Facebook, where for you to proceed to the next stage, you actually have to consent. Now, you are not forced to give this consent, but before you can move on to the next stage of that application, there's a certain permission you have to click on, or a certain consent that you have to give that is qualified. So somehow your information is still collected. You have not been forced, but for you to advance, you have to give that information. As a person who collects data from people who come to you, there are certain key things or certain principles that you really have to think about or uphold when it comes to how you treat the people who come to you and give you this information. The first thing is, as you're collecting this information, you are accountable. You are accountable to this person that you are collecting information from. How are you going to use this information? If they asked you what you're going to do with this information, would you be ready to give this information? And all this has to be done within the brackets of the law. What you're doing, the information that you're collecting, is it within the law? Is it legal? Are you doing it illegally? Is this information that you're going to use to harm this person's integrity? those are things that you need to think about. And as you're collecting this information, there is need for fairness and transparency. How? Are you going to make these people sit in the sun for a long period of time because you really must have this information? Yes, you need to be fair in the methods, in the process, in the if it's an interview, how long is this interview? You need to be fair. Is it children that you're collecting this information from? You will need to feed them before you actually get information from them, so that they give you the right information because they're in the right state of mind and stomach. Now, when it comes to this information, it should be relevant. There should be some sort of relevance when it comes to collecting this information. What are you collecting it for? Are you just collecting it to keep it in the store, in your office, in your organization? No. There should be a reason why you are collecting this information. And you need to, there should be lots of minimization when it comes to this data collected. You need to make sure that you break down what exactly you're going to use this information for, how you're going to collect it. The process should be easy and it should be of great quality. Don't just collect all sorts of information and then a processor or the person who goes through this information to sift through it has to go through lots of information, and in the end even the point of collecting the information is lost. It has to be quality information. So that means you need to break down if it means getting smaller groups to go to these people, if it means having more than one person collecting this data, because there are some people who may have one person and then as a person is collecting, they get tired over time and the quality actually reduces. And above all, there should be transparency in everything that you're doing. Collect this information with goodwill. Collect it knowing that you're going to use it for the right reasons. And once this information has been collected, there should be a security system. By security, I'm not meaning digital only. Some of you may collect this information and put it online or put it into your digital systems. Some of you may have a more traditional way of, having a store file system where you keep this information. But in whichever way you may choose to, there should be a system where this information will not be hacked or will not be lost to someone who will use this information in such a way that it may harm the people who have actually trusted you with this information.
Hello, my name is Kennedy. We have just spoken about the means and ways of collecting data. But before a person collects any other individual's data, they need to first of all seek the permission or consent. What is consent? Consent can be termed as expressly providing permission to utilize or use someone's information, in this case being personal information that can be used to identify them. And this information can be used for monitoring their use of a particular service from the individual that collects this information from them. Why is it important that you need to first of all provide this consent to a person collecting data? At the point of requesting your consent, it gives an opportunity to understand what another individual is going to use your information for, any activities that may be undertaken using your personal information, but also gives you an opportunity to either agree to these processes or activities or to disagree and not provide consent. You can take an example of individuals on the websites that you may visit. In the event you want to utilize a website, it is important for you to provide consent to them collecting information on your name, your age, your location, so that in the eventual provision of a service to you, they can tailor make it based on the location where you are. However, if you feel it is too much information to be gotten from you, at the point of a person seeking this consent, and having explained exactly what they're going to do with your information, you may choose to say no to providing this consent or permission. It is also important for you to learn that at the point of them seeking consent from you, it gives you an opportunity to note a few things you may not want your information to be utilized for. For example, you may say that you're collecting my personal data, personal information, but I would not like you to share it with any other third parties I may not know about. So that way, you can limit the use of this personal information collected from you. Thank you. Hello, Kennedy here. We're still on data privacy and protection. So what do you do in the event that your rights as a data subject or person volunteering data are abused? This can take a form of someone taking a photograph of you and utilizing it on a website that you're not aware of. It can take an example of a person working in multimedia companies, for example, people producing magazines, newspapers, and catalogs for commercial use, taking your photograph, having a caption to it, without seeking any form of consent or permission from you, but nevertheless reaping a benefit. In that way, you are a person who may feel that your rights as a user of an internet-based platform are being abused. So what do you do in those circumstances? First of all, it's important for you to inform in writing and formally that you are not willing to have your picture used for commercial benefit or any benefit without your permission. Secondly, you can formally write to this particular individual or company and inform them to stop using it without you giving them any permissions to do so. Third, you can ask that that photo or that particular material identifying you is removed from either newspaper, catalog on the internet, or a website. And you give them a minimum of at least 7 days to first of all remove this particular information, for example, a photograph. Secondly, share an apology that the photograph was used without your consent, and any information that was captioned on this particular piece of information can be disregarded. In the event that you have taken the steps of informing these people or this particular individual that you're not happy with what they did and requested them to take down that particular photograph, but they have not done so, you can consider filing a complaint to NITA. NITA is a regulator in this way of following up with any individuals that feel that their rights have been abused, especially in regards to personal information that can also consist your names, but as well as your photograph. You can inform them that someone illegally or unlawfully made use of your personal information without seeking your consent, and they may have even gotten a commercial benefit. NITA will then take on this complaint and engage this individual, organization, or company to investigate the occurrence of this particular act. If they indeed find that they used your personal information and or a photograph without your consent, they can then go ahead to file penalties against them or a fine, or they may file an actual legal case before a court of law that ends up in a fine against that individual or company. Once again here, how does the law punish those who abuse data privacy? Before we go into the punishment, we need to first of all identify and learn what offenses are highlighted in the law. First of all, you violate the law in the event that you unlawfully obtain a person's private information or personal data. You also violate someone's privacy and commit an offense in the event that you obtain a person's private information or personal data and you share it with a private individual or entity without the consent of the person who volunteered this information to you. Lastly, you commit an offense in the event that you obtain a person's private information or personal data, and you go ahead to distort it and create identities that may not be of that particular individual that volunteered information to you. So in the event you do any of these acts, you will be one of the individuals who the law looks at as a person who has abused the data privacy and protection law. What does the law do to people who abuse data privacy? The law provided a penalty in a form of a fine that a person who is convicted of having abused the law and committed the offenses I've spoken about is liable to pay. Under the law, you're liable to pay a figure or a fine of 245 currency points. A currency point under our law amounts to 20,000 shillings. When you multiply that by 245 currency points, it amounts to a sum of 4,800,000. Upon a conviction of any of the above mentioned offences, an individual, a company or any entity will be fined a fee of 4,800,000 to pay for having violated the privacy of an individual or a person who volunteered information to them.
Hello, welcome to the Know Your Law series, where Barefoot Law answers frequently asked questions on the law. Do you have employment issues? Questions about family law, criminal law, land transactions? The answers are right here on the Know Your Law series.